Hello, everybody. I am Dwight, and this is,
Lachelle Franklin.
and we are from the Williams Franklin Foundation. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday afternoon, early evening. We are here for an exciting conversation regarding the resilience
And the value of HBCUs.
There you go. All right. And today we have some exciting panelists that are going to have a tremendous amount of information to share with you all. Before we get started, I just want to share a little bit of information about the Williams Franklin Foundation. We are a nonprofit organization that our mission is to provide scholarships to HBCU students, networking, mentoring, and all sorts of internship opportunities as well. Our goal is to help make sure that our students graduate, matriculate through the HBCUs and graduate and have productive professional careers.
In addition to that, our goal is to uplift and highlight the excellence that HBCUs produce through their students, their student leaders, that we all have the opportunity of reaping the many benefits from across all industries, from politics, government, private industry, etc.
So long and behold, let's jump right into it.
Let's jump in.
All right. So on today, we have Dr. Christal Williams, who is a regional minister and president of the Christian Church. And we have
Dr. Trent here, who is the executive director with the White House Initiative on HBCUs, representing the Department of Education.
And then we have our moderator, who we are extremely proud of, because Mr. Virgil Parker. He is a graduate of Howard University, our alma mater, and he also is a Williams Franklin Foundation scholar, as well as a Fulbright scholar. And he does a tremendous amount of work in the community as a community advocate. Currently, he's broadcasting from Canada. So we're excited to have him here. Dr. Williams, Dr. Trent, welcome everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dwight, Dr. Williams, Dr. Trent. It's great to be here. First and foremost, I want to say to you humbly and graciously, Dwight and Lachelle, for having this conversation. As you know, with 2022 and the end of 2021, we've had some very existential threats against the HBCU community. And as all of us as HBCU grads on this call, people listening, welcome everybody. It's been hurtful to know that members of the community, from parents to students, to faculty, staff, and administration, have been learning on what to do and how to cope with these issues. And we want to be able to address this as a collective. And coupling that with the issues that are going on in society, it's really about time that we have conversations about this. And I'm excited to have these two experienced leaders with us to talk about it. So without further ado, I want to first introduce Dr. Trent. Dr. Trent earned a bachelor's degree in sociology and criminal justice from Hampton University and completed her master's and doctoral degrees in public administration at the Virginia Commonwealth University. And she served as the former Secretary of Education for the state of Virginia. And as Dwight and Lachelle said, she's the current executive director for the White House Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities. And we're so grateful to have her input today. Next, we have Dr. Christal Williams. Dr. Williams is also an HBCU graduate. She has over 30 years of experience of ministerial service and congregational leadership. She's the regional minister and president of the Christian Church in Nashville, Tennessee. She's also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and she's a proud HBCU graduate who's going to give us some wonderful tips today and advice on how students, parents, and loved ones can deal with the surrounding challenges we have in the community. So Dr. Christal, Dr. Trent, thank you so much for being with us today. Dr. Trent, I want to start with you. Again, going on the many threats that have been happening against HBCUs, one of which has been bomb threats. The federal government did put out a response by issuing a grant called Project Serve, which is now can be utilized by HBCUs to enhance security measures. Please give us an update on what's the latest with Project Serve and how people are responding to it and how effective you anticipate it's going to be, please.
So thank you, Virgil, and it's so good to be here with you all. It's good to be with you, Dr. Williams. I also want to just say thank you to Dwight and Shelley. You guys are a great example of what HBCUs are all about. It's all about providing leadership and service and responsibility. And so what you're doing through this foundation, the lives that you're lifting and touching each and every day are tremendous. And it is the legacy of an HBCU, but it's certainly going to be your legacy. So thank you so much for all that you do for countless students, not just for those students, but their families, right? And so it's a reverberating effect. You're affecting communities, not just students. So we want to thank you for that. So Project Serve, as you mentioned, Virgil, it's about 3 weeks ago, I think, Vice President Harris announced that these grants, Project Serve, will be made available to HBCUs that have received threats. Project Serve are short-term, immediate funding that universities or local school districts could get when they face trauma or has faced some kind of a devastating experience. And so these are the grants are there to help restore safety and restore the learning environment to the way that it was prior to. And so we were happy to make that announcement. Right now, HBCUs are contacting the office that serve these grants. Mm-hmm. And our office is having conversations with them. They know and working with them on their applications. I think so far we've received 3 applications. We've had conversations with probably most of them at this point. And so our office is working with them with the HBCUs to make sure to help them fill out their applications. So that's where we are. We're in the application stage right now and having these conversations with our HBCUs, affected HBCUs.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. I'm glad the federal government stepped up because we needed some progress. We needed a response to this because it's really been unearthing, as we all can tell. And to that point, Dr. Christal, I want to bring the next question to you. We have so many parents and students who, again, feel uncomfortable with what's happening on campuses, not just with the bomb threats, but the surrounding crime that's happening on campuses. We have situations where students, unfortunately, are really getting into some very serious encounters with the public. What are your thoughts of about the things that have been happening on HBCU campuses, and what do you think the response should be?
So, to me, HBCUs are all about community. It is about family and how family rallies around one another when going through anything. And I just want to say that to hear what's happening on our campuses is heavy to bear. It's a weight knowing that we are sending our young people to school and they're being threatened and all these things are happening. Dr. Trent, you used the word devastating. It's devastating. But I feel it must be dealt with. Investigations, it must be a priority. This is not something that should be pushed to the back burner. I think we investigate everything else. Even the smallest little things, the country investigates, the city investigates, investigate those things. I believe that there is a level of intimidation, a level of grief being brought upon our students, bullying, and that stuff needs to stop. It needs to stop because, Virgil, we're not going to stop. We were created for a specific reason, to train and to uplift our people, and we're going to do so. We're resilient. We're unstoppable. We're going to reach every goal. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams, and we are the alumni's a dream as well. So we've got to rally around. We've got to come together. We've got to work a plan, and it starts right in the community. We're our own answer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Williams. Dr. Trent, to the point of what Dr. Williams just made, for those of you listening, in case people aren't aware, the FBI has begun investigations into the bomb threats that started in February and January. So the FBI is actively looking into the challenges. But Dr. Trent, I want to hear from you as an HBCU graduate, how you feel about the various challenges that have been happening affecting HBCU campuses, the surrounding crime, the bomb threats. How does it make you feel as a graduate to hear of these challenges and what the community has to deal with as a burden? Please, Dr. Trent.
So I would say that as an HBCU graduate, it's devastating. it's devastating. I was angry by them, and I think the thing that really hit home to me was I had one of the universities to report that when they received the threat, it was just frantic chaos all over the campus. And they were shutting everything down, and they were trying to shut everything down, but students were so impacted and so fearful of what was happening. And they were saying that these students feel that the threats are imminent, right? So we received all these threats, and fortunately did not find any explosive devices so far. But students feel that it's imminent, that it's coming. And so the thought of somebody threatening our students, going on our campuses and threatening our students it's unheard of. And I was angry, just like every other alum, right? Just like every other student. If you do it to one HBCU, you might as well do it to us all. It's a community. We're a family, right? So I was really devastated by it.
Can I jump in on that? Do you all think that it is another form of, during post-slavery, during slavery, during Jim Crow, to prevent our students from getting an education?
Well, I think so. I will say that it was done intentionally to inflict threat to our students and to disrupt our communities. I don't know that it was. I can't speak to that, but certainly there was malice behind what was going on, and so whatever the intention was, I know from at least from the Biden administration, that is something that we are not going to put up with. We will not have our students threatened or fear when they're on campus. We are there. We're going to be their safety guard, and we're going to make sure that we provide them with the resources that they need in order to make sure that those campuses are secure. And that's what we did through Project Serve.
Absolutely. But before I get to the next question or the next topic, Dr. Williams, I want to ask you on to the follow up to the point that Dwight just said. If you're a parent and you hear that your student is in fear, their friends are in fears on campus because the basic level of security that should be on a university campus is not being met, and we have these bomb threats that consistently happening, what do you say as a parent to your child or to your child's friends? How do you encourage your child to stay comfortable and to just continue their education? What do you say?
Well, the first thing that I would probably say, and here's the truth, I'm on my way to get you, because I think that's the first thing that a parent thinks of, the protection of their student, their child, their baby. But then when reality kicks in, I think you're encouraging that child, number one, to take care of themselves. Be careful how you move and navigate on that campus. Buddy and party of 2 and 3. Don't walk anywhere by yourselves. But I'm also going to encourage my kid to communicate. Communication with school officials, alumni, sororities, and fraternities. Shout out to Delta Sigma Theta. Make sure that you all are active and that you are so aware of your surroundings, aware of what you're doing. Make sure that you are not perpetuating anything, but you are the solutionist. We have a responsibility as parents, because I'm not just sending my kid there expecting them to do all of these things. I'm back at home on the ground. I'm also contacting and being in conversation with other officials, parents, alumni, trying to find strategy to help make sure my kid is safe and that they are receiving the education that they deserve. So I'm writing, I'm calling, I'm Zooming, I'm StreamYarding, all of these things to make sure that my kid is safe.
Absolutely. And Dr. Trent, I before we move on, I can give you the same chance. Do you want to say a message to the parents? If you were talking to a parent, or if you were a parent of a child at HBCU, what you would say to the child to kind of comfort them and get them through these crisis times?
So I would just say that, basically what Christal said, and what I said earlier, and that is this will not be tolerated, and that we have and we will continue to put the the resources of the federal government behind us. We're going to make sure that our HBCUs are secure and safe, and that they will have the resources that they need and that are at our disposal for them to beef up their security through these Project Serve grants. So
Thank you.
my message is the same message as the administration has had all along, and that is we won't put up with it. There's no place for racism or threats like this in our education system, and so we're just not going to put up with it.
Absolutely. Dr. Williams, transitioning now to another topic with social media. Part of our conversation today is the impact of mental health issues. And, as a student, you have beyond physical threats, you have emotional, you have spiritual needs, you have mental needs, and social media can play a very interesting role in impacting a person's anxiety, their stress levels, their ability to cope. With all of the pressing challenges that are existing on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, what message do you have for students on how to cope with the need to stay in contact with the world through social media, but also prioritizing their mental health as a student and as an individual to make sure that they're functional? What's your message to students, Dr. Williams?
Thank you for that question. I think the first thing that I would say is that we don't work in silos. That it's really important that we expand our thinking, expand our network, and that we are in community. Everything about HBCUs, everything about us as a Black people, it spills of community. So make sure that you are with folk. Do not operate, even if everything was going right with the world, do not operate by yourself inside that apartment, that dorm room, whatever it is. Make sure you are a part of what's happening in the community. And then the second thing that I would say, it's okay to get off social media from time to time. There are times when you have to put it down. I want to say that loud and clearly because, yes, this is the way of the world, but you do not have to be on TikTok, Facebook, all of these things. You don't have to take it to the toilet with you. You can leave it on the dresser while you go take care of your business because it's important. Second thing that I would say is gratitude. When we start being thankful for some of the things that we have going on that's going right in the world and in our lives, that pivots your thinking. It pivots things in your body. So thanking the universe, thanking the creator, number one, for your still being here. Going outside, a lot of our HBCUs are in the South. So being able to go outside and experiencing some of this vitamin D from the sun, something as small as that. Make sure you're getting rest.
Yeah.
Make sure you're not up 24 hours a day. I sound old school because I'm reminiscing back in the day. I was up round the clock. But I think you have to rest. We live in a world where you have to go to bed. You gotta take a nap. You gotta eat well. You gotta do some exercising. I want to add one more thing. It's important to laugh. Laughter does good like a medicine. So get with your friends and start cracking up on some stuff. I also want to say meditate. Pray. Take some time to commune with the universe, with the world. As a people, Virgil, you already know, we like to talk. We like to, sometimes it's good to sit outside and just enjoy the sounds that you receive from the air. And then think about where you're going on your trajectory. Because when you think about where life is taking you, where you are today and where you could possibly be tomorrow, that fills the time of your life. You got to dream. You got to think beyond the here and now and in this moment. So when you spend some time doing that, that helps to eliminate some of that anxiety. Don't immerse yourself in the negative. Listen, we live in a world of sound bites. So, you jump from TikTok to Facebook, from Facebook to Twitter, and so it's all of these are sound bites. Sometimes you got to quit biting, and really get to the heart of the problem. Don't live your life like that.
Yeah. Take care of yourself. I think that's a universal message. And you said it beautifully, Dr. Williams, and I appreciate that input. Before I get to the next point, I want to give everybody a chance to remind them, please, comment, feel free to put questions or comments into the chat box. We are going to open up the floor in a few minutes to allow people to answer questions from the public. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to comment them right there on Facebook or whatever medium you happen to be viewing. Dr. Trent, my next question is for you. You can first of all speak to more about what your office does at the White House Initiative on HBCUs. But my question specifically is about the type of resources you have, if you have any resources available to students, faculty, staff, alumni, and parents, those individuals who may need additional support beyond academic support. Again, when it comes to mental health, emotional support, things of that nature, and in adding to specifically talking about what your office does, how do you think? What advice would you give to students and parents on dealing with the difficulties of social medias and those burdens, and again, taking care of yourself? What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Trent?
So let me just speak a little bit about what my office does first. It's so we are the White House Initiative on HBCUs. President Biden signed the executive order last fall. Which is something that every president since President Carter has done. The difference between what the Biden-Harris administration's executive order and the rest is that I think that the Biden-Harris administration really put a lot more teeth and substance into the initiative. We are building on a strength of a Partners Act, which was passed last year. And this act, and so it actually really does align well with that act. And that is that this administration is requiring every federal government agency to do plans on how they will work with HBCUs to provide greater opportunity for HBCUs, whether it's from their research or programs or internships or fellowships, but making sure that that we eliminate all barriers to HBCUs. And so my job is to work with those federal agencies through those plans to make sure that we are providing them with the assistance so that we can all be successful. The one thing that we do know is that we're in a place in our world and in our country where we can't afford to not include everybody. We cannot out innovate other countries. We cannot out compete other countries unless we have HBCUs at the table. And we know that HBCUs, when we invest in HBCUs, we invest in our future. We are a much stronger country because we have our voices at the table. And so my job is to make sure that our voices is to elevate that voice amongst federal government as much as I can, and also just throughout. Another part is just creating and working with foundations such as the Williams Franklin Foundation, as well as corporate America, to really elevate the voice and the statue of HBCUs. Right. And so that's basically, that's the gist of what we do, just making sure that we're eliminating those barriers and making sure that our HBCUs have the opportunities that they deserve, and that we know that they will rise to that occasion.
Absolutely.
I think that I don't know that I can give any better advice than Dr. Williams gave in terms of how to take care of yourself. I can tell you what I do, which is exactly what she said, and that is to push back from the TV, push back from the news, meditate, take time for myself, take a walk, put the phone down, turn it off. All of those things are really, I know that's kind of foreign to the native techies out there, but all of those things are necessary for you to really begin to take care of yourself emotionally. There's so much in this world that's pulling at our emotions. There's so much in this world that's causing us to stress out, and you can just tell from what you're seeing in the country today. Yeah. And a large part of that is because we try to, many people try to live up to standards of other people, and they do that through this social media, when you just really need to live up to your own standards and the standards of your family and the standards of your God. And if you would just, step back and unplug, which is something I know that's kind of foreign for this generation, but just unplug for a moment. I promise you're going to be okay. The same people will be there who are out there now, so you will not have missed anything. But just take time for yourself.
Virgil, I
Absolutely.
want to say one more thing.
Please, Dr. Williams, go ahead.
Dr. Trent, and maybe those same people won't be there when you plug back in. And maybe that's a good thing. I want to be very clear in saying that therapy for those who need it is important. To take care of your mental and even your spiritual temple, sometimes you need to go lay on somebody's couch or sit in somebody's chair, somebody who's not your mom, somebody who's not your grandmother, but someone who has some letters behind their name, who can possibly diagnose and calm you down. So mental health worker, maybe a spiritual director, someone who will work with you spiritually on the issues that you may be facing, maybe a grief group or a small group. I am not going to shy away from a therapist or a spiritual director or a pastor or someone who can help you walk and even navigate and balance what you see going on around you. Because sometimes you all, even after the silence, even after the sleep, even after the good dinner, you still wake up and you need more. And I recognize that.
And then if I can just add to that, the Project Serve grants can be used for mental health services and mental health training personnel on campus. So in addition to enhancing security measures, it can also be used for that. So that's a big part of what we're thinking about as these universities are dealing with these threats. It's really it really stresses these students out in ways that that no one can even imagine, right? And so it's necessary for us to provide those kind of resources and be able to, for universities to be able to use those resources for mental health. So good point, Dr. Williams.
Absolutely. And Dr. Trent, I appreciate you and Dr. Williams dropping these nuggets, particularly what you just said, Dr. Trent, about the fundings for Project Serve being able to be used for counseling services. As a student at HBCU, I knew the counseling service department was very critical. For a lot of my friends, loved ones, and people, it's important to be able to sit down with a professional, like Dr. Williams said, and work with someone to help eliminate some of those toxic sources in your life. Whether it's people, whether it's things, whether it's social media, you can have some toxic sources that drain you. And you need to be able to decompress and detach from those negative sources if you want to remain to be functional. So I appreciate all of that advice. Before I get to the next question, I do want to say it's worth noting, and Dr. Trent, if you want to make a comment on this, you can. Even though the traditional name of your office is the White House Initiative on HBCUs, it has recently transitioned to the White House Initiative on Advancing Educational Equity, Excellence, and Economic Opportunity through Historically Black Colleges and Universities. And it's really important to know that. I'm pretty proud, I can say, as an HBCU graduate, how this administration is taking on the effectiveness and the possibility and the prowess of historically Black colleges and universities. And they have always been a forefront for over 150 years on providing opportunity and productivity for our nation. And they will continue to do so, as it seems, under this administration. So I'm happy we're able to mention that transition. Dr. Williams, my next question is for you. So we're starting to talk about some of the coexisting challenges that affect students, that affect faculty, staff, administration, and parents. Dr. Trent and Dr. Williams, you both understand that HBCU students and alumni are typically called to be servant leaders, problem solvers, take on some of the most pressing and difficult challenges, from discrimination to racism to systemic oppression, et cetera, et cetera. And, to the young student mind, it can be overbearing, even to some of our existing professionals. Dr. Williams, what do you think, how can social and political issues today, such as unfair voting rights, challenges with critical race theory, which is a different form of more informative and authentic education, or criminal justice reform, when you see these over compelling issues and students are trying to figure out how to appropriately address them but are getting burdened by them, what advice do you have for those students who are trying to join the next wave of leadership in this generation?
The first thing that I would say, Virgil, and thank you for asking me this question, nothing is new under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very important that we know from whence we've come.
Mm-hmm.
And that a lot of this is history repeating itself. And so in order to gain strategy and a plan and the tools to move forward in this particular era and season and time, you got to know where you've come from. But I want to make a very strong statement. And the statement that I want to make is this is an attempt at eliminating the Black voice, the Black body, any trace of Black existence. And this could be a mighty blow if our students fall into this. We have to make sure, those of us who are outside, alumni, friends, pastors, parents, we have to make sure that our students have every opportunity to contribute in the ways in which they feel they can. We have to make sure that they have enough support to get their work done. We have to make sure that there's enough scholarship money to take care of their bills. We have to make sure there's enough internships. We must rise up as a community. I'm going to point us back to the community, because every single thing that we need, from the welfare, from jobs, from even food and mental health services, it's in the community. And we must continue to build from within. We're experts at building from within and making sure that there is room and a road, the road being paved to wherever our students want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have got to network. We have got to come out of our own silos, and we've got to link arm in arm with our schools, our students, our neighbors. And we've got to make sure that this generation and even the next has every single thing that it needs. That is what's on my mind. My money, my gifts, my connections, all of that as a fence, as a fortress for those who are coming behind me to have that opportunity. I think that is really where I am right now. We've got to be reminded that we come from a resilient people. Obstacles and turbulence will come, but we are overcomers. We are more than conquerors. We will not be stopped. We're unstoppable. And we've got to teach that at home. We've got to teach that in the church. We've got to teach that in the Kingdom Hall. We've got to teach that at the mosque. We've got to teach it at the Sunday dinner table. We've got to teach it everywhere we are. We've got to exemplify that when we're out. We've got to exemplify it in our home. That's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thank you. No, thank you, Dr. Williams. And Dr. Trent, similarly with you, I appreciate the energy and passion of Dr. Williams. Dr. Trent, I want to give you an opportunity to speak to how HBCU students and alumni feel that they have to be problem solvers of today and of tomorrow, and enter this generation of addressing systemic and discriminatory challenges that have been so fragrant in our society. And specifically with you, I want to call upon your experience as the former Secretary of Education of Virginia. Education inequality continues to be a very pressing issue, one which many students, particularly those from HBCUs, look to address. Talk to us about, the type of education inequalities that you saw in your state, if you want to speak to that briefly, and how you think HBCUs play a critical role in addressing the inequalities that, exist throughout our nation. Please.
So thank you for that question. And again, and thank you, Dr. Williams, for your passion. I think it's what the historic and the systemic racism that exists today has always existed. And in the state of Virginia, we really tried very hard to undo some of the things that we knew were wrong. The last administration in particular went through the law, the Code of Virginia, all the way through it, and pulled out all of the racist laws that were in there and got rid of all of them. So in Virginia, we have been trying to do, at least up until the last election, I shouldn't have said that, I'm sorry, but we have been trying to really had a strong focus on equity. And for our HBCUs, when we were going through some budget challenges, we made sure that our HBCUs were not impacted. There were other universities throughout the state that had to actually receive budget cuts. Our HBCUs did not. What I tried to do through board appointments was to make sure that we put strong business people on that board, people who can raise money, people who can help them build their endowments, and just to make sure that we're providing them with a strong foundation and leveling the foundation through the resources that we had and the tools that we had at our exposure. That was through policy, that was through the budget, and that's what the Biden administration is doing now too. I mean, if you look at what this administration has done, the Biden-Harris administration has put historic funding into HBCUs. Last year alone, it was $5.8 billion. A large part of that went to students, directly to students. This year, they have increased, they have a $400 increase to Pell Grants. 70% of our students are on Pell Grants. This will be the largest increase in a decade, right? And so we're continuing to use the tools that we have through our federal agencies and requiring them to make these plans available. We're doing it through the Partners Act. We're doing it through the budget. The Biden administration also put in $450 million for HBCUs and MSIs for research and infrastructure. So we're doing everything that we can, and we're going to continue to advocate, and we're going to continue to build on what we've been doing. But we do need Congress to act. We need Congress to pass the budget. But we have it in there. The budget is in, and it's a lot of opportunities in there for HBCUs, but we need it passed. So
absolutely.
That's just a little plug out there.
And I thank you for that, Dr. Trent. First of all, thank you for mentioning, that the funding that's going to HBCUs and, how students are being impacted by it on the bottom line. It is worth noting that Hampton University is one of the more recent institutions as of April, to erase the outstanding student balances for the spring 22 for many of their students. And then, the university made a statement that they recognize the impact of COVID-19 has had on students and families. And, they made that decision to not increase tuition, but erase outstanding student balances. And, that's because of support that's been happening externally, whether it be from the government or the private sector, that HBCUs or people are recognizing the value of HBCUs and choosing to invest in them during this critical time. So, thank you for bringing that to our attention. As a final question to both of you, want to ask, starting with you, Dr. Williams, how do we come back together stronger, particularly, as we cope with this pandemic? And we know HBCUs have been hit very critically hard, both financially, socially, what have you, by the impact of the pandemic. But we want to remain valuable. We want to remain resilient, as we will continue to be. How do we come back more unified and stronger as an HBCU community in this society? What final advice would you give to our listeners in terms of that?
I'm so glad that you asked me that. So in 1974, ABC aired a pilot. And this pilot show, it starts with a man who's going up in space. And his rocket ship, it crashes to the ground and it's done. The next scene shifts. The man is laying on a table on a gurney. And you hear the doctor come on. And he says, "This is Colonel Steve Austin. He's an astronaut." And he talks about what's going to happen to Steve. He says, "We have the ability, the capability to make the world's first bionic man. We will make him better. We will make him stronger. We will make him faster. We have the capabilities. This will be beyond human norms. I'm bringing that up, Virgil, because when you talk about beyond human norms, who we've been as a people is beyond human norms. And when I think, what is beyond human norms? That's the capability of our Creator, what the Creator has been able to do with Black people. We will come back from this better, faster, stronger. We have the technology. We have the capabilities. We're going to vote, Dr. Trent. We're going to not allow those funds to sit up in somebody's financial aid office and not be distributed. We're going to tap every resource that we have. We're going to put our minds, our spirits, and our bodies to work. We're going to allow our ancestors to help continue to lead the way. We're going to be who we always were. We're going to be unapologetically Black. Mostly everything in this world, this country, we've created. We come from a long legacy. We have the power. Look, Martha Wash was not the first person to saying, I got the power. It was Black folks saying, we've got the power. We can do incredible things. We are unstoppable. We are phenomenal. And even with that, we're so much more. We have just got to allow the community to do what the community has always done. Send us. Send us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, Dr. Williams, I want to just say for the record how much I appreciate your positivity, your energy. It's amazing. And I hope people can take this encouragement that you've been giving, you and Dr. Trent both, because it's been extremely powerful. And we need this kind of courage from our leaders like yourself, who are out there blazing a trail for us and just letting us know that things are going to be all right at the end of the day. Dr. Trent, last question to you, and it's going to be very similar to what we said to Dr. Williams. How, as we continue to still cope with this pandemic, HBCUs have to continue to be relevant and impactful, not just to our country, but to our global society. How do we come back stronger, unified as an HBCU community, as a society, past this pandemic and continue to be impactful as individuals? What is your advice to the HBCU community?
So first of all, I would say amen, Dr. Williams. Amen.
Yes.
I do think, and to build off of what Dr. Williams said, I do think that it is time for us to own our greatness, right? It is time for us to understand that HBCUs are more important today than they ever were in the history of our country. HBCUs are the solver of many of our problems. Like I said, we cannot outcompete, we cannot out-innovate unless we have HBCUs at the table. And so it's time for us to own that. It's time for us to own our greatness. It's time for us to own our excellence and not, not think just because whatever the majority culture might think about us. Don't buy into that. And the one thing I will say is that I have been to these HBCUs. I have sat with these students. And let me tell you something. I have no fear of what's coming ahead. These students are on it. Well, Virgil, you're a prime example, right? But, just hearing what these students have had to go through. I had a student yesterday at Clark to tell me that she was she's graduating this semester. She said one of her classes, she was the only student in that class. And she said her instructor, her faculty member, had her come to her office every other day and sit in her office for an hour and 45-minute class. And it was just the two of them. And the only reason she did that was so that this student would not have to stay another semester to take that class. Her sister, who goes to a predominantly white institution, had the same problem. And as a result of that, she's graduating a year later. So that's what the HBCU community does. And that student said to me, and for the rest of my life, I will always remember that. And whatever I do, I'm going to think, would Dr. Fernandez approve of that? That's the impact that we have on these students. That's the kind of impact that's out there. I have no fear. no fear what our future looks like. HBCUs will rise, and we will thrive.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
we're going to make sure that everything the Biden-Harris administration is making sure that everything in our power that we can do to assist them, to make sure that they stay relative, that we stay relative, we're going to do it. So I have
Absolutely.
no qualms about that at all.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Trent. But before I pass it to Dwight and Lachelle, I want to say it's worth mentioning two things. That one, enrollment has increased at HBCUs as of 2022. Enrollment is going up. So people are seeing the necessity and the value of our HBCUs, and they will continue to be relevant, as Dr. Trent said. And it's also worth noting that some of the greatest trailblazers in our history have graduated from HBCUs, from the Dr. Martin Luther Kings to the John Lewises to the Oprahs, and even our Vice President Kamala Harris. Our value of our graduates of historically black colleges and universities. So you can debunk any of the myths of people even mentioning or suggesting that HBCUs do not prepare you for the real world, because of the most iconic leaders in our history, some of them have walked and graduated from these institutions, and they will continue to do so, and as they are in the leadership positions today in our society. So thank you, Dr. Trent. Thank you, Dr. Williams. It's been an incredible conversation, and I'm looking forward to see you both continue to impact our community. Dwight, Lachelle.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much,
This has been phenomenal.
Virgil. Yeah, I'm almost not ready to take over and close this out because I'm so full. I feel renewed, energetic, and I just feel the passion that's flowing through everyone on this call. But more importantly, even some of the comments we've received,
Yeah.
we didn't want to interrupt you guys to even say what everyone has been saying. But people have definitely agreed with the point of taking care of yourself,
Mental health,
the importance of mental health, the importance of unplugging, how, you know, all of our our HBCUs are always on the forefront of change and clearly greatness. And that's why, you know, you all mentioned, and I think it was a common theme, the importance of community. We often speak about that. Everything that we need, we already possess. It's just within our community. We just have to find ways to tap into that. And the Williams Franklin Foundation, we're just trying to do our part to be a part of the community, to serve others, to specifically serve students attending HBCUs, because we really believe that every need that they have, we really can fulfill it. I'm a prime example of that through my experience going through an HBCU. I'm not going to go into all the details of my experience going through Howard. You can find that on the website, but my story is not unique, which is the point. And me getting through and now being successful in my own right, that's not unique. There are many examples of that, but we have to continue to elevate those stories. And that's what we're hoping to do through these Share the Love sessions, is to update to uplift our students so that they can shine, so that the world can see the wonderful and great things that they're doing, but also the leaders within our own community. Because also, although that there are many that we know of, and Virgil, you did a great job of naming a few, but there are so many more that are never named, but are doing phenomenal things in our community, like Dr. Trent, like Dr. Williams, like you, Virgil. And this gives the world an opportunity to hear from you, to see you, and hopefully just, gain a bit of knowledge and hope to continue the fight, to continue this journey, because it truly is a journey, but it's a beautiful journey when we can share it together. Because if all of us just try to do a little bit, then no one person has to do a lot, and it won't be too much for any of us to carry. So I just want to ask everyone, continue to follow the Williams Franklin Foundation at www.wmsfranklinfoundation.org. And our motto is to invest, educate, and impact. So we ask that you all come along on that journey with us. There's so many ways to plug in and join this community, and we're looking forward to your continued support. Dwight, did you want to close out and say a few things?
Yeah, I just want to say I have goosebumps, literally. I am ready to get out in the streets, do what we have to do. Let's get folks voting. Let's get folks signed up. Let's get folks active. Dr. Williams, Dr. Trent, thank you so much for the wisdom, the spiritual guidance, the information about what the Biden-Harris administration is doing. We are so excited to have you all out here. Please continue the good fight. And everything we've talked about we're all witnessing it through Virgil. As the next generation of leaders, as the next generation of HBCU students. I can't tell you, Virgil, how proud I am of you, my brother. And I'm saying it publicly so everybody can hear it. You have fought through some stuff, and here you are doing your thing.
Yes.
And you did a great job. Great job. So thank you so much.
Moderating.
Thank you so much.
He did a great job moderating. We couldn't have asked for a better person. When we thought to do this, we were like, we know the perfect person for this, and it's Virgil. He's come through for us on so many other occasions, and this
proud
is no other.
Scholar.
Yes, we're so proud to have him as one of our scholars. But he's also very, he's an example of many of our scholars, the exact same. They're all shining bright lights. They're going to go out there and change the world, and we just want to do our best to help propel them forward, pull them up and thrust them forward so they can do their thing. So on that note, we want to thank everyone for joining out there. We see comments are steadily coming in, but we want to thank you all for joining. Know that you can see this. If you didn't get a chance to see it all, you can see this on our YouTube channel, as well as it'll be posted on Facebook. Feel free to share it with your friends. And we just pray that everyone continues to be safe. Enjoy your evening. Thank you and good night.